I think it's unfortunate that the Chinese actually don't want to come and negotiate because they are the worst offenders in the international trading system. They have the most imbalanced economy in the history of the modern world.
Right now, China is paying a 104% tariff. Think of it, 104%. Now, it sounds ridiculous, but they charged us for many items 100%, 125%. Many countries have. They've ripped us off left and right. But now it's our turn to do the ripping.
104% tariffs on China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it, and sell it back here. Never has an administration.
400% tariffs? What would that look like?
I want Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field.
U.S. markets are currently soaring. The NASDAQ is up 10%. This is the biggest jump in the NASDAQ since 2008. We're seeing it right now. Elon Musk is tweeting out his support. Secretary Bessent talking about how economic security is, of course, national security. And guess what? Guess what? The 10% tariffs globally are still going to be in place. They're still in place. It's all going on, folks. This is something that people could not see this. People could not see this. People were freaking out. People were going, the sky is falling. They were losing their minds when ultimately this was, and I was on War Room this morning, this was all about China. China was always the biggest malefactor here. They were the biggest offender. They were the worst one of all. They were the one that was always going to be locked in on this. And I posted a little thread on this last night on X where I was thinking about this some more. And then Kevin O'Leary had his thing this morning where he was talking about we got to squeeze their heads against the wall. It's simple. They're cheating. They're undercutting. They're stealing IP. But guess what? They're doing that because they actually put their country first. They actually do whatever they can. And yes, it's cutthroat. And yes, they'll use exploitative labor practices and all of these things. They don't care because they're acting in the best interest in their mind, from their perspective, of their country. So when I lived in China, first was there in 2006, spent time there between 2006, 2008, almost 2 years in total, learned Chinese Mandarin, traveled all throughout the country, traveled throughout Hong Kong, traveled throughout Taiwan, learned a lot. But one thing that I also learned is that it's almost impossible to sell anything into China. And we talked about the system of globalization here when we did the China Files a couple of years ago. If you guys haven't done that, please go listen to the China Files and make sure you're checking that out. And of course, the China Files was later turned into a chapter on the unhuman Republic of China, which is, I believe it's chapter 8 or 9 of Unhumans, the Secret History of Communist Revolutions and How to Crush Them. And we talked about how globalization and the system of globalism was built on the bloody squares, the bloody cobblestones of Tiananmen Square. And that there was this idea that if we treated the CCP regime the same way the United States and the world treated Russia after the invasion of Ukraine, had isolated them back on June 4th, June 5th, 1989, the day after, and it said, hey, we're going to stop doing business with you. We're not going to inject you with any more of this liquidity of the foreign direct investment. We are instead going to pull out. We're going to end trade relations. We're going to end everything with you until you apologize, et cetera, et cetera. No, we didn't do that. We didn't do that at all. The deal was grant the Chinese Communist Party access to the Western capital markets in exchange for Western IP and the use of the Chinese exploitative labor as the global workforce. They turned China into the factory of the world. This is between the elites, U.S. elites and the Chinese Communist Party. Did this in secret. And then they rolled out and said, oh, it's going to be most favored nation status, and it's going to be the PNTR. And we had Oren Cass on yesterday discussing this, how the permanent normal trade relations between the U.S. and China, their accession to the World Trade Organization, the WTO, gave them the ability to have access to all of these things. And it was done on purpose to line their pockets while who got screwed over? American. It turned the steel belt into the rust belt. It turned our manufacturing centers into rotted out cores that are flooded with fentanyl and migrants. We'll know more. It's all coming screeching to a halt. This has always been about China. This isn't about tariffs anymore. And we've got Secretary Scott Bessent now with an update. I want to go to that immediately.
This was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along. And that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors. And we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well.
So think about that. What is Secretary Bessent saying there? Secretary Bessent is explaining that of all the countries in the world, the one country that retaliated in the way they did was China. Not the European Union, certainly not our allies in Japan, not which we know Bessent and the ambassador had dinner last night, not the South Koreans, no. And what's going on right now is the ASEAN meeting. So the ASEAN meeting is taking place. That's the Association of Southeastern Asian Nations. Why does this matter? Because ASEAN controls the South China Sea. These are the nations that ring the South China Sea. And any goods that come from China to get them to market, where do they have to go through? They have to go through the South China Sea, down past Singapore, up through the Strait of Malacca, through the Indian Ocean, into the Red Sea, past the Suez Canal, and then into Europe, or the other way across the Pacific to America. Why does this matter? Xi Jinping is now going to the ASEAN meeting. Xi Jinping is terrified of what's going to come out of the ASEAN meeting and the ASEAN dialogue. He's never done this before. Why is he doing it? He's doing it because he realizes that for once, the Chinese Communist Party isn't going to get their way. For once, the dragon is going to be defanged, and now the dragon has to actually talk. And now the dragon has to actually figure out what they're going to do and try to get people on board. Look, the yuan's in free fall, and it's been in free fall since yesterday. And guess what? It's only going to get worse. So stay tuned, stay with us. Kenny Cody is going to be next. There's a lot of breaking news as we dig into this. This is the great deal. President Trump is giving you your country back. Did you think it would be easy? But did you also think, let me ask you this, did you also think that it wasn't going to come without any pain? Yes, there will be some. Because when you have to take your medicine, that's the short-term pain that goes towards the long-term gain. We are restructuring the entire global economy. And it's a simple question. It's a simple question. Will China play ball, or will China have to suffer the consequences? CCP, the ball is in your court.